Thank you to my sponsor for this interview, Bennett & Co Financial Services. Since 2006, Bennett & Co have offered sound investment advice to their predominantly small business clients, managing everything from self-managed super funds, estate administration, family trusts and other structures, and individual portfolios. With a focus on direct equities and other ASX-listed products, their personalised approach will help you achieve your long-term investment goals. As long-term clients of Bennett & Co, Barry and I have personal experience of their professionalism and communication and have complete trust in their considered and reliable recommendations. No matter where you live, Bennett & Co Financial Services will always go the extra mile for you. When Perry Cross was just 19, he was injured in a rugby tackle and his life was changed forever. Perry has been living as a C2 ventilated quadriplegic since 1994. To say Perry is an inspiration is the greatest understatement. Through his commitment to others, Perry has forged a remarkable career, and his foundation, the Perry Cross Foundation, is on the cusp of finding a cure for those with spinal cord injuries. Perry is a remarkable human. His outlook on life and the positive effect he has on others is phenomenal. I hope you enjoy hearing Perry's story. Hi, Perry Cross. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to say before I let you start speaking, but yesterday, I've been looking forward to meeting you and having this chat. But honestly, yesterday, when I was doing my research on you, I sat out in the office all day and I was totally blown away. So I could hardly sleep last night. Stuff was going through my mind, and we almost need a whole day to talk to you and find out so I can share everything about you. But we don't have all day. So we'll see how we go. But thank you, Perry.
Thank you, Kelly. It's a real pleasure. It's been an exciting journey and a fulfilling journey, along the way. There's plenty has happened, so there's a lot to talk about,
Yeah. Perry, let's just go back to the beginning. So let's talk about your childhood, because you were actually brought up on a little property at Taree, weren't you?
I was, just inland from Taree. We had a beef cattle property, and it was an interesting childhood because we had, acreage, freedom to roam around, horses and cattle and motorbikes and all those sort of things that, farm kids have when they're growing up. I guess you don't appreciate it until you don't have it. Living in the city now, looking back on my childhood, it was just an amazing time to be sort of free-spirited and adventurous. And, you go down to the creek and sit in the creek for hours and, play around and just live a life that's much different to living in a town or a city. So, it's a pretty cool way to grow up, really.
And you didn't see yourself as much of a scholar, did you? You were very energetic and more into sport. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess growing up on a property just meant I was more active than maybe most kids. And I never really got into my academics at all. I was always playing a sport on the weekends, and after school I'd go to training and do that sort of stuff from a very young age. And that continued through my high school years. And I just loved the activity, the fun of being in a team, all that sort of stuff really, drew me to being a sporting person. So I guess what I, take from that is the fact that I'm, good around people, and I love to be around people. I'm good at developing relationships with groups of people, and that's important in life. And maybe that's part of the success of being able to deal with the situation I'm in now.
Perry, what were some of your, hopes and dreams that you had when you were young? Like, how did you see your life playing out?
Yeah, I didn't have, massively grand plans. Like, I was never going to conquer the world. Like, that was never my intention. As a kid, I was always just, play sport, have fun. I think when I finished school, I was pretty set on working in my parents' family business at the time, which is a flooring business here on the Gold Coast, which is still here. And I was pretty focused on a simple life, like I wasn't very focused on anything more than that. I was just the basics and pretty humble and not very, like there wasn't an exciting future ahead, I guess, that I could see as far as, when we compare it to the life I've lived, I suppose, because of the situation with my spinal injury. But I guess pre-spinal injury, I think I look back and go, well, it was just going to be pretty almost a life.
It's interesting because one thing I've been wondering is if this hadn't happened to you, and as we go through the interview, through our little chat today, people will just learn just how enormously inspiring you are and the drive that you have. Do you think if you hadn't had the accident, do you think you would have still been that huge driving force behind so many people? Do you think you recognise that in yourself?
It's really hard to know, Kelly. And I guess a lot of people ask me this question, and I'm not sure how to answer it. Like, I guess maybe like that I've got a personality that is a bit, think big type scenario. So maybe, I'd have done stuff in business that would be, out there. I don't know. Like it's hard to imagine. And that's, I guess, the beauty of life is we'll never know. But maybe that's something that is in my personality as opposed to my physical attributes. There's two sides to life. There's the physical side, and then there's the mental, emotional side of life. And I think if you take away the physical side, really our bodies don't do much for us. Like unless you're a person that's digging holes or playing sport or whatever, you don't really rely on your body that much to do many things. It's mainly our minds and our attitudes and our our determination, our focus, our courage, all those sort of emotions and attributes that really drive our lives, not our physical bodies. That's my opinion.
That's a really great way to look at things too, because it's something that I hadn't actually considered before, but so true. Perry, I just want to touch on, and I know you probably get asked this question so many times, but the day it happened, like, do you have much memory of it, and how were you feeling? Talk me through what happened that day. And
I do, and I still think back often about that day because it's obviously a big impact on your life. And for those of you who don't know my story, I was a 19-year-old playing rugby in Brisbane. I'd been invited to Ballymore to play in a trial game for an under-19 rep side, and I was playing a rugby match, and I basically got the ball from the back of the right, ran the ball up, was tackled in the tackle on the rugby and shoot. I broke my neck, and when you suffer a spinal cord injury, the thing is, it's a physical injury. So I dislocated the vertebrae in my neck, crushed my spinal cord, and I was lying there on the ground, fully conscious. Because you don't lose consciousness when you suffer a spinal cord injury, you're paralyzed. So I lost all the feeling, all the movement in my body, and I'm laying on the ground thinking to myself, "Oh wow, something bad has just happened." And all the people in the game, the players, around me sort of came together and like, supporting me and saying, "Oh, you'll be right." The coaches, the staff at the game. And, I knew that I was paralyzed. I knew that I broke my neck. I could tell that was what had happened. And as we talked about earlier, I was a terrible student at school, the worst science student I think to ever go through my school. But I knew that I'd suffered spinal cord injury. I didn't know what it was, but I knew right then and there that was what had happened. And it was a tough moment. After a while, I became emotional. I started to cry, and I was like, I've just, done something permanently bad. And I was transferred to hospital. I was in hospital for 8 months, like a significant period of my life. The night of my injury, I had surgery to try and fuse my neck and the bones. And then in the next few days, I was in an induced coma and went into life support. And I'm still now ventilated quickly, which means I'm not, ventilated 24/7. I have to have 24/7 carers support me to do everything. I can't kneel. I can't feel or move anything apart from my head and neck. But those of you watching can see I can't move anything apart from my head and my neck. I can only feel the surface of my face. So in terms of a spinal cord injury, it's probably the most traumatic and severe for people who suffer injuries. I'm basically 95% paralyzed. I can still eat, I can still drink, I can still, live an active life. Obviously, like I'm out and about every day in my car and doing things. And I've got an amazing support team around me. But at the time of my injury, I didn't think there would be a future. I look back, I remember just thinking to myself, even during the time that I was in hospital, learning to cope with the situation. I'm never going to be any good to anyone. I'm going to live like this for the rest of my life and never be able to do anything. I'll just lay in bed all day and watch TV because you don't. What else can you do? And I didn't know that there would be a life beyond my spinal cord injury. I guess it wasn't until I left hospital and I got back into the community and I got my friends and family, the community around me, that I got that renewed hope in life. While I was in hospital, it was just pretty, it was a massive downer. Like, you're just thinking to yourself, life is shitty and bad. There's no hope, But when you get back into the community and you realise that there's good things you can do and good people around you, and that gave me some inspiration and some hope.
So how long were you in hospital for, Perry?
I spent a total of 8 months basically in intensive care, acute sort of section of the spinal ward in Brisbane, which meant that I had someone with me, all the time and constant alarms. You never really get much rest or any sleep or anything because there's just always something happening. There's always someone, nurses doing something, checking things, and doing obs and all that sort of stuff, just constant. So yeah, it was a tough 8 months.
Perry, I want to just speak about your mum, Shirley. And there's a saying that says it's more difficult to stand beside the bed than to lie in it, which what I think means that, and I've experienced it when I've seen my kids going through something tough, that it's so hard to see your children go through, tough times. And I can only imagine how difficult that was for your mum. So tell me how important her strength and courage has been to you in you becoming who you are today.
Yeah, look, a lot of it, most of my, where I am now, pay tribute to my mum and thanks to her for the effort and the time that she put into me at the time of my injury. They would travel, mum and dad would travel every day to Brisbane to see me on the Gold Coast, bring food and just emotionally support me. But beyond that, Shirley was very sort of focused on helping me to overcome the situation. It's hard to explain the depths and the extent that she went to help with that. But she would constantly talk to me and coach me. That it wasn't about the physical situation. It was about my mental strength and my drive, my determination. There's a lot of resources. She would do a lot of reading and get a lot of books and sort of read a phrase from a book and give me things to sort of dwell on and that sort of stuff. And this is all at a time where I couldn't, for a period, talk. I couldn't eat. All I could do is see and hear for a period of time that I was in hospital. So she was really focused on making sure that I was staying mentally strong and not being sort of wheeled down emotionally and mentally. So, and then that continued after I was discharged from hospital. I moved back into the family home, and Cheryl would spend days with me, sort of supporting me. And then eventually she went back to work and I would stay at home. And I remember pretty clearly one day I didn't get out of bed and because I wasn't feeling 100%. And she came into my room and said, "What are you doing?" I woke you up. I said, "Well, I don't want to." She's like, "Well, if as long as you live in this house, you're going to contribute. You're going to be an active member of the community and society, and going to dwell and rest on your laurels." And I remember that pretty clearly. I asked her recently if she remembered that moment. She said she didn't. And I said, "Well, I remember it very well." So, but that sort of help and encouragement, because that's mother's encouragement, is what I needed, to kick up the bum to keep going, because it would have been so easy to lay in bed all day and do nothing and just use those moments as excuses, and life would have been very different.
God bless your mum.
No, she's pretty amazing woman.
Perry, one thing I learned yesterday, and you feature on your website a lot of people who have spinal cord injuries, and they all go through a period of feeling tremendous guilt that they have done this to their families, and their focus isn't so much on themselves but on what they're putting their families through. So did you experience that, and how do people move through that?
Yeah, it's so true. And it's a good point to talk about, because it is spinal injuries are destroying emotionally, physically, for families, put my family through heartache, and my parents separated years after my injury. And, look, that might have happened anyway, but it definitely didn't help having a spinal injury. The pressure it puts on the parents, they were running a family business, so that put more pressure on them, and then there was more focus on me instead of their relationship. All these sort of things where you go, wow, it destroys the whole family dynamic. I have brothers and sisters. I have an older sister and a younger brother, and they've been incredible to me. So supportive and given up so much in their lives because of the situation that I'm in. It would have been much different if I hadn't been injured, that's for sure, because I'm the boring middle child, so I wouldn't have got any of the attention. It's always the oldest one, the youngest one to get all the attention, I reckon. So it was just my way of getting back at them, I suppose.
Well, I hope that my middle child, my son Hutton, doesn't go to the extremes that you have to get a bit of attention. I'll have to make sure I pump him up a bit. Perry, you've paved the way for so many people right across the world. And one story that I loved yesterday when I was finding out all about you was your Christopher Reeve story. So could you please share that here?
Yeah, so some of the listeners may not even know who Christopher Reeve is, and I'll take you back a bit, but when I was a kid, back in the 70s, 80s sort of thing, growing up, there was a gentleman in the movies, Christopher Reeve. He was the Superman actor when I was a kid, and he is probably a modern day type Chris Hemsworth or something. You might be able to compare him to Hollywood actor, superhero, household name sort of thing. And as I said, Superman actor, and Man of Steel, can leap tall buildings, stop a locomotive with his hands, all that sort of stuff as Superman actor does. And not long after my injury, probably only about a year or so after my injury, I remember pretty clearly the moment that I heard about it. And I was at home and I heard on the radio that Superman actor Christopher Reeve had been injured in a horse riding accident. He was an enthusiast in show jumping and equestrian and all that sort of stuff. And he was at an event in the States, in the United States, and his horse that he was on reared at a jump at this show jumping meet, and he went over the front of the horse and then landed on his head. He compressed his spinal cord and broke his neck, and basically had the same injury as me, a ventilated quadriplegic, C2 quadriplegic. And this to me was incredible. Of all the people in the world at the time, this gentleman is the Man of Steel, with a lot of people around him to support, a lot of attention on him, obviously, because he's a Hollywood actor, household name. So he garnered so much attention and support for the community of spinal injuries, and was a powerhouse in terms of fundraising and raising awareness and all that sort of stuff. And in the years following our injuries, I had this really, what would you say, crazy determination to want to, meet with him. It was pre-internet, pre-email. It was sort of just on that verge of where technology was evolving and contacting people was getting easier. But I hadn't been able to meet him or talk to him. And anyway, I decided the quickest way to do this would be to jump on a plane and go and see him. But part of the challenge with spinal cord injury and being ventilated is that, there's some complications, some risks, very serious health risks with the situation. And my doctors always advised me that I would never be able to travel on aeroplane because there was so many dangers with DVT. You would have to get power to the ventilator. There's all these issues that would just make traveling in an aircraft far too seriously dangerous. So I was convinced that I'd never be able to fly, but the only way I'd ever meet Christopher Reeve would be on a plane. So I talked to my doctors again, after I'd been discharged from hospital, and I had this guy who was my GP, who was relatively new, he was young, and he was a bit sort of more open-minded about my situation. He said, look, I will help you work out a way, and he was willing to talk to the airlines about how the engineers could get power to my ventilator. He was also sort of helping him put together a risk management plan for flight, all those sort of things that no one else had ever been willing to consider. And so we did this and spoke to Qantas. Qantas was supportive, and he signed off my medical clearance forms. And before I know it, I'm in New York, which is where Christopher Reeve lived at the time. And we'd been lucky enough to be able to arrange a meeting with Christopher. I go into this room, and it's actually in the World Trade Center where we met pre-2001 one September 11th, and we go into this room, and he's in there, and the first thing Christopher says to me is, "How the hell did you get here? What have you done to get here?" And I was like, "Well, it's funny you ask, but this is the extremes we've gone to make sure that we got here safely and that there was no issues." And we explained the situation. And, the irony of that was that his doctors had told him the same thing. He would never be able to fly an aircraft internationally because of the danger and that sort of stuff. Anyway, we sort of shared the insights and the tips that we'd been able to create with the engineers, the aircraft, and all that sort of things. And afterwards, Christopher went on to travel, and he actually flew to Australia a few years later, came down here and saw us at an event we held in Sydney. And so my claim to fame these days is that I was the guy that taught Superman how to fly again. So it's a funny story. I mean, it's a heartwarming story, but I think it goes to show that everything is possible. That's my motto in life. You just got to be able to put your mind to it, stay focused, have some determination. Don't always take no as an answer. It would be very easy just to say, "Oh, well, the doctor says you can't do it. Let's not do it because that's what they're telling us to do." It'd be very easy, as I said earlier, to not get out of bed every day. It'd be very easy to wrap yourself in cotton wool. What sort of life would that be? So I think, life is what you make of it. So it's a bit of a cliche, but even for someone with a C2 spinal cord injury, life is what you make of it.
And Perry, I imagine that opened the gates for so many other people in your position to be able to, like, as you said, Christopher Reeve came to Australia, but I guess it's more common these days. And have you travelled to other countries since?
Yeah, I have since. I've done lots of travel, but it's funny you mention that because it hasn't actually opened up the travel industry that much. Not as much as I would like to see it. And we're only just now talking about legislation around making airplanes accessible. You can get on a bus or a train or, a taxi or whatever. You can get an accessible version of that. But when it comes to airplanes, there is no accessibility. And even the big commercial airlines these days still are very resistant to making them wheelchair accessible or accessible in their features. And it's only just now becoming legislation in America that they provide accessibility. I don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but we need to have basically wheelchair accessible planes so that people can get on and off without the hindrance and the difficulty, because people should be able to travel. We're a more inclusive society these days. Back in the 50s and 60s, we lived through periods of segregation, terrible, segregation in society, and we moved on from that. But people with disabilities still don't have full inclusion in society, and aircraft's a great example of that.
Perry, apart from that, do you think we do disability reasonably well in Australia? And I'll just share this little story with you. So people who know me and know our family, Gail, my sister-in-law, she's lost one arm and lost the use of her other arm. So her husband, Mac, is her full-time carer. And I know, he does everything for her. So we have Mac's sister lives in America, so we've spent a little bit of time over there with Amanda. But I always notice when we go there that when Mac and Gail need to go to the bathroom, there's not a separate facility for them, a separate disabled toilet. Mac has to go into the women's bathroom, and I'll tell you what, they get a few looks. But in Australia, you know, we don't have that problem because there's always a separate disabled toilet that Mac and Gail can go into. So do you think we do disability a bit better than America, or not?
Australia does disability very well. Like the National Disability Insurance Scheme is amazing and been life-changing for lots of people. So I would definitely give a big pat on the back to Australia because we do that very well. And things like specialist disability accommodation, which I'm involved in with accessible homes. We build accessible housing in Australia now. So we've embraced this thing very well. But there's still a way to go. Like, you know, America is a weird situation. They've got their Disability Rights Act, and people live by it and swear by it, you know, and they're very inclusive, but they still don't do things like accessible housing very well. But in Australia, we do. So there's some grey areas where we can all do better. Some countries can do better than others. But yeah, there's still like a long way to go. For me to fly on a plane is a rigmarole. You know, like you have to ring up and tell them you're coming. You've got to speak to the special handling departments and all this process and procedure. And it's not just like turn up and hop on and simple. And life is complicated because of my disability, and that it shouldn't be like that. You know, like I should be able to just, like everyone else, book a seat on a plane, turn up and move around freely. But I get it that it's, you know, it's different. We are unique in the situation we are. But, you know, we have to use a wheelchair, but it's normal, isn't it? Like people are born with disabilities and they need wheelchairs. It shouldn't be so. It shouldn't be such a big deal in life. We should just embrace it fully and make the world a better place.
Gary, just on that, like apart from the obvious, what are some of the toughest challenges you have day to day, or things, you know, that, you know, for instance, I imagine, you know, you had to take a lot longer to get prepared for today than I did. So could you talk us through a little bit of those challenges that you have on a daily?
Yeah. Well, I have an incredible team of support workers around me that help me do everything. You know, eat, drink. They, you know, give me my meals. They help me every morning get ready. You know, we spend over 2 hours every morning getting prepared for the day, every day. And we do that again at night, getting back into bed, reverse sort of process. You know, things like my ventilator, we've got to make sure it's got enough power, or the wheelchair's got enough charge in it. All these sort of constant things that are, you know, I guess very, very important, life altering things that have to happen. And that's just day to day, becomes routine for life. You know, you don't just roll out of bed in the morning and get ready and go and do things. It's a process, and my body is a business in a sense. Like, you know, it's you have to look after yourself. You can't run the risk of getting a pressure wound or something where that will be in bed for weeks and weeks, months. Sometimes, you know, if I have pressure wounds, which is basically where the skin breaks down and you end up with a wound that won't heal because of the things like poor circulation, because I'm not moving properly. So all these things are complicated. And for people who have had no exposure to them, it probably sounds very foreign, but they're day-to-day things, people with spinal cord injuries and other disabilities. So we live in a situation where you're always teetering on being healthy and fit and, you know, able to go and live in the community easily and quickly, you know, relatively to the situation, or you're held back by medical conditions that are going to prevent you from, you know, taking part in things. I recently had a mate's birthday where I couldn't go to my mate's birthday because I'd had a situation where, you know, something was stopping me. I was like, all I wanted to do was go and attend this friend's birthday. I'm like, well, my health is more important, because it's a bit of a spiral. And once you get on that spiral, it's hard to get out of the spiral. And prevention is better than cure, I always say. So, yeah, we've got to look after ourselves.
Yeah. I was chatting with Shelley Kerr yesterday, and you know Shelley well, and she told me a story about how you only get dressed once a day. So if you're going out that night and you need to wear a tux that night, then you're stuck in the tux all day. And that's something I wouldn't have considered.
Yeah, and there probably are, ways to work around it, but for convenience, you get dressed in the morning, you're not, calling the carers back to come back and get changed too quickly in the evening because it's such a long, process. So, be efficient. You get dressed in the morning, and that's going to last you all day. And that's some of the sort of funny things that just have to deal with, like getting around in tux all day. It's probably not a bad thing, but might be able to dress for lunch. That's all.
Perry, you talk a lot about your carers, so I just wanted to shine a bit of a light on those people who support not just you but other people all across the world who are in similar situations to you. So tell me about your carers and how important they are to you.
Yeah, well, as I said, I couldn't do anything without them. So they're life-changing in terms of what they do and the support they offer me. And when I was injured, I didn't know people did this it was an industry. Like, I was naive 19-year-old. I didn't know that there was this whole care industry. And I often ask myself, is it something I would do? And I didn't even know that I could answer that very well, that I could do this for other people if I was in this situation. I was, the shoe was now the foot. So you got to wonder what life would be like in reverse. But they do incredible things. They do everything for me, absolutely everything. Drive a car, brush my teeth. It's just, and you can't give enough thanks for that. That there are people out there that do these sort of things, that are willing to support someone like me on my journey. So, yeah, I give huge amount of thanks to all those people out there that are supporting people, because it's we can't overstate it enough how vital that support is.
They're just selfish human beings, and I know it's a bit of a cliche, but angels, without wings. And I'm a bit like you, Perry. I don't know if I could do that as a full-time job. You can do things for your own family, but that's.
Yeah, and I often ask my carers, I was like, why don't you what makes you do this? They go, oh, well, it's easy. We do it, don't see it any other way. I'm like, wow, okay. So it's just the way they see life. And I guess everyone sees life differently. Some people have got skills that, maybe there's accountants among us listening. I don't think I could be an accountant either. Sitting there looking at numbers all day. So it's just horses for courses.
Yeah. Perry, I want to talk about the foundation, but before I do, the foundation doesn't happen without funding. And I know you have a lot of different events that you run, and we could talk about all of them here, but I just want to highlight one that I attended. Was the City and Country Raising Bucks. And we were talking about it before, and I said I tried to get close enough to you to introduce myself, but you were like a rock star and I couldn't get anywhere near you. But it was just such a special day. And I feel very grateful that I was there to witness their generosity and the love that happened in that room that day. So could you just talk me through your experience of and what you thought of City and Country raising bucks and how you came to be involved in it.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Marcus and Shelley Kerr are amazing people. They're incredible, members of the community, and I'm so grateful to have met them and their support. The Red Cross Spinal Research Foundation is so, incredible. They've been so supportive of us for a number of years now. But as you mentioned, recently they did City Country Raising Bucks, and it was a huge event. There was hundreds of people at the Eka showgrounds, and I can't believe the effort and the amount of support they were able to create. Raised more than we would ever imagine. Basically, they raised hundreds of thousands of dollars through the lunch that was held, and then which was like a charity lunch with options and all that sort of stuff. But afterwards, we had a rodeo. Basically, they set up a bull riding event, which is incredible. It's hard to paint a picture and do it justice for the listeners, but it was an incredible day. It went for hours. It was just this whole event. But on top of that, they were able to get the Queensland Premier along, and the Queensland Premier announced a $2 million funding contribution to the Red Cross Spinal Research Foundation for our humour trials, which are about to begin this year. So the work they have done, Marcus and Shelley and their whole family, their whole community, their team, they've got an incredible support network. But Marcus and Shelley particularly are amazing. They've been instrumental in contributing huge amounts of funding to our research project that help cure paralysis. So I'll be forever eternally grateful to them both and the whole family and their community.
Perry, I just want to highlight how Anastasia Palaszczuk came to be there that day. Do you know the story?
I don't know the full story, no.
Just Georgia Kerr was having her hair cut or blow dried at the hairdresser, and it just like months before, it was only just in the very early planning stages, and Anastasia Palaszczuk happened to be in the same salon. So Georgia, of course, being Georgia, went over and said, look, we're going to have this event, and this is what this foundation is doing, and would you come? And then she gave her email address, and so it's just incredible how things happen, how that synchronicity comes together just right when you need it.
Yeah, and more to that, I think the Kerr family are, so admirable. The Premier wouldn't just drop things and do things for anyone. And I think that's, important to say that, they've obviously done a lot for the community over a long period of time. And it's also big recognition for the family that, the Premier gives up her day to come along and support the event, and then to further support the charity. It is a really recognition of the Kerr family, I honestly believe.
Just incredible. So, Perry, let's talk about the foundation, because it is just remarkable what you are achieving.
Yeah. So, following my meeting with Christopher Reeve back in the day, he was my sort of inspiration to follow medical research and take an interest in what was happening in respect to a cure for paralysis. I sort of began to follow along and take an interest in it. And unfortunately, not long after I met Christopher Reeve, he actually passed away, and we lost our spokesperson, our figurehead for medical research. And following on from his passing, I decided that we needed to maintain the push and the surge and the fundraising, this to make sure that we were continuing the progress that he developed in medical research to cure paralysis. So I set up the Spinal Research Foundation to help my family and my friends and, the community around me. And we've been up to this incredible stuff over the years. And, the long and the short of it is now in 2024, we're planning to start human clinical trials, which is a nerve bridge transplantation and rehabilitation clinical trial, which involves patients getting the cells taken from the olfactory nerve, which is in our nasal cavity, basically, in front of the brain, to the back of the nose. These olfactory cells that we use are basically really, really regenerative cells. The sense of smell, which is what these olfactory cells sort of do, regenerate every day. And the sense of smell is the only nerve in our body that regenerates every day very, very rapidly. So we believe that these cells have great potential to help regenerate the spine. So a team at Griffith University has been able to take these cells from a patient's nose, purify them, and then in the lab, been able to make a nerve bridge, which is basically like a piece of cell nerve, like a piece of transection of nerve that they can transplant into a patient's spinal cord to, fill in the damaged section of the spinal cord. It's a hard thing to sort of comprehend, but we believe that these cells have the potential to help regenerate the spinal cord. So combined with rehabilitation, we do rehabilitation at Making Strides here on the Gold Coast, which basically involves people getting up out of their wheelchairs into harnesses, all this sort of fancy equipment, purpose-built equipment, very expensive equipment to help, people mobilise, they're paralysed, and get them into rehab to get their bodies moving and functioning again. So it's a long process, but we think that this is a way that we can help the body to recover and hopefully regain some sort of improvement in spinal injuries. And that's our plan.
Terry, the human trials, thanks to the funding and the help that you've received from the government there, it's starting mid this year, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, our own piece of string sometimes it's frustrating because we get setbacks here and there, just little things that slow us down. But yeah, that's the plan, is hopefully start patient recruitment mid-year this year.
Yeah. And originally you were only going to have 10 participants, but you have 20 now that will take part?
That hasn't yet been decided. We're still sort of finalising some of that detail with our ethics approval, which our research team is going through right now as we speak this month, and they'll lodge the ethics approval at the end of January. And then, so right as we speak, a lot is happening to make sure that we get it all lodged properly, and then we get it approved, and then we can get the process underway. But there's a lot happening right now. But basically, we're still in the throes of fundraising. Thanks to the community, the Kerr family, we had an $8.5 million fundraising target, and we've been able to raise pretty much $7.6 million. So we're inside less than $1 million required to start the trial. The good news is that we've got the ability to start the trial without being able to, sort of fundraise that final amount and get started. So, but we're still on the drive to make sure we get to our actual fundraising target.
Is it? I think I read somewhere there's 35 people at Griffith University working on it. Is that right, Perry?
It's a huge team.
Yeah.
It's a massive team. Yeah, and they're all very, very smart people, way smarter than me doing. we host lab tours. So, people out there that are interested in the technology and the research and might want to consider donating, but, want to know more about it, we can host you on a lab tour. So you can come through, meet the team, understand the science and how it works. And there's 35 people in that team at Griffith. There's another 20 or so people at our Making Strides team in Burleigh and in Ormo now on the Gold Coast in our rehab teams. So we've got a huge team of people around us making sure that this happens and that it is done well in the first parts. We want this to be a world-class science, that technology that will be offered not just to people here in Australia, but around the world.
Yeah. I've heard wonderful things about Making Strides and just how people feel going there and what a wonderful team it is. It sounds like a great place. And talking about Shelley again, she said to me yesterday, you should just go there and sit for an hour or so, because you come away just feeling so amazing, and it's so incredible to watch what the work that goes on there. So I'll have to do that one day, get into Making Strides and have a look.
I would highly recommend it, yeah. And if you're ever down this way, come to the lab as well. But I think for someone in my situation, when I don't do Making Strides and I don't do my rehab and I miss those sessions, you feel it and you know that you haven't been exercising, you haven't been, doing the rehab. And, the government recommend that we do 30 minutes of exercise every day. Well, for people with spinal cord, it's way more, complicated and way more necessary that we do even more than that. So, it's an essential part of our lives now that we do this to make sure that we stay fit, stay healthy, stay on top of our health, and fight off any unforeseen ailments.
That's one thing I actually hadn't considered until yesterday, was the important link between, the stem cell research that you're doing and the physical therapy as well, and how that all ties together for the best outcome. So that was a highlight for me yesterday, finding out about that too.
Yep. No, it's not just a magic pill or a magic injection. There's a lot of work involved in making sure you get everything. So.
Yeah. Para, I just have a few little short questions to ask. So just on what do you miss the most in your life? That
walking on the beach would be something I would love to be able to do again. I live close to the beach. I'm a Gold Coast kid. As a teenager, I spent a lot of time on the beach as a kid. So just simple things like that. They're just the basics.
I've been reading this beautiful book, Bright Shining, written by Julia Baird, and it's all about grace. And I just wondered, because you had talked about grace in something I watched yesterday. What is grace to you?
I think, if there's any advice that I can pass on, and not necessarily advice, but from my point of view, things happen in life. There'll always be people who are worse off. There'll always be people who are better off. And I think we just need to be grateful. And if we can have gratitude, and if we can be humble and live life with gratitude, that allows us to be grateful. And then that allows us to be graceful as well. Because as soon as you start to look at other people, compare yourself and those sort of things, you lose the gratitude, you lose grace. And I think whenever you can remind yourself that life is amazing, life is beautiful. We only get one go at this that we know of, so just embrace it and be happy. Happiness is a state of mind, a choice. You can choose to be angry, but you can also choose to be happy. So I would encourage people to approach life with a happy attitude.
Talking of that, Perry, I have this theory that no matter, even on the darkest day, there's humour to be found. So what are some of the funny thing that's happened to you? I mean, I guess there's heaps of them, but what's one that stands out?
Look, I've got a wicked sense of humour, so people might not find this very funny, but I was once in America traveling, and my ventilator was playing up, and in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. it literally stopped. The ventilator stopped working, and to me that is a terrible predicament to be in. But I look back, and we had to really hustle to solve a terrible situation. So we had to go and get another ventilator, while someone else was air-beavering me, which is like a bag. It basically keeps me alive, which is fine. You can air-beaver and stay alive like that for hours. But when I look back, that's a pretty funny situation to be in. Like, I was in another country without a spare ventilator, and probably lucky. But those sort of things are, to me, are pretty humorous, because they're the lengths that I've gone to be able to live a fulfilling life. Pretty crazy, I suppose, but maybe that says something about my personality too.
Perry, yesterday I was watching the video of when you received recently an honorary doctorate from Griffith University, and my gosh, that speech is one of the most powerful things I have heard. And I if it's okay with you, I'll put the link to it, because I think it's something that, so many people would get so much from it. And I actually wrote pages out yesterday of the transcript, and I'll just read a little bit. Life is an intricate canvas, and each of us holds the brush to paint our masterpiece. And that's just the beginning of it, and it goes on, and it's just absolutely so powerful. So, Perry, thank you for your time today. Thank you for being the person that you are, and for doing so much for so many other people, and investing your life and soul into other people and making life better for so many others. So, but yeah, I really, really appreciate your time and hearing your story.
Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate the offer to take part. So appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll have to meet you in the flesh when you're not so busy.
Yeah. Well, let me know when next time we go up. I'd love to catch up.
That would be lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Perry.
Have a good day. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching and listening to my interview. If you'd like to hear more inspiring stories, subscribe to my YouTube channel or my podcast, and follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Life Journey TV.